The rain hit the cracked asphalt like shattered glass, each droplet echoing in the empty alleyway where Daniel's hands trembled around the crumpled note. He had memorized her words, the ones she whispered over candlelight. It was only once, but the calendar sprawled across his apartment wall told a different story. Each date, each marked night contradicted her confession, slicing through the fragile truth he clung to. Shadows twisted along the peeling brick walls, and the faint hum of neon buzzed overhead. He could still feel the warmth of her hand in his, the way her laughter had drowned out the storm. And yet, as the final mark glared back at him, tonight's date circled in crimson, the question clawed at his chest. Would he confront her, or let the betrayal fester silently, poisoning the love he had built around a lie? Daniel stared at the scattered receipts, each timestamp a betrayal etched in ink. Mia's promises rang hollow in his ears. The soft voice that had once been a lullaby now sounded like a trapdoor, swinging open. Every coffee, every movie ticket, every late-night text was a thread in a web he hadn't seen until now. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the window, the city lights blurring into streaks of suspicion. Could love survive when trust had been carved into riddles of lies? And as he watched the rain distort reflections of faces he thought he knew, a chilling thought whispered. What if he had been only the last in a line she kept secret? The ringtone jolted him, Mia calling from an unknown number. His hand hovered, the decision split him. Each second stretched into years, the weight of confrontation pressing his chest down. Should he hear her excuses, watch her lips move while the truth twisted in her eyes? Or should he let silence speak, let betrayal hang in the air like storm clouds over an abandoned street? He closed his eyes, tasting the metallic sting of rain and regret, heart pounding like a drum of inevitability. Would you forgive someone if the truth was worse than the lie? That question burned hotter than anger, hotter than sorrow, leaving him on the edge of action and despair. Mia's apartment door clicked open, her silhouette framed by golden hallway light. Daniel froze in the doorway, the space between them charged with accusation and grief. Her eyes darted away, voice soft yet defensive. I didn't mean to hurt you, but every lie had a weight, and this one had toppled mountains inside him. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and regret, her perfume now a cruel reminder of the intimacy he thought was sacred. He wanted to shout, to ask the questions that would burn both of them, yet the storm of betrayal had silenced him. Could love ever reconcile with repeated deception? Or was this the moment when everything shattered irreparably? Rain hammered harder as they faced each other, silence stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. The city outside whispered secrets through glass, reflecting every hidden truth. Daniel's hands twitched, a mix of rage and heartbreak threatening to spill over. Mia's lips quivered, eyes glimmering with tears she could no longer hide. And in that heartbeat suspended between confession and accusation, the ultimate question lingered. What if betrayal was the only way to survive? Every lie had a story, and every story demanded its reckoning. The night pressed in around them, heavy with inevitability, as each heartbeat echoed louder than the last, and the question remained. How far would trust bend before it broke? The next morning, Daniel wandered through the gray city streets, the rain replaced by a pale drizzle that left everything damp and muted. His mind churned with images of Mia, her lips repeating lies, her hands promising tenderness that now felt like chains. The notes, the receipts, the messages, they were no longer evidence. They were daggers embedded in memory. As the wind tugged at his coat, he wondered if love was ever real, or if he had been living inside a story she authored alone. Each passing stranger reminded him of her, her shadow clinging to him, whispering questions he could not answer. Could someone you love betray you without malice? Or was every touch a calculated deception? Mia sat in a quiet cafe, her dark curls damp from the drizzle outside, staring at her untouched coffee. She replayed the night's confrontation in her mind, the way Daniel's eyes had burned through her like fire. She had intended honesty, but fear had frozen her words. Now, with the morning sun casting weak streaks through fogged glass, she questioned herself. Could she repair the fracture she had caused? Could she confess fully without losing the man who had believed in her? Every sip she considered was cold, bitter, a reflection of the guilt she carried in her chest. And yet, the truth pressed on her like a weight she could no longer avoid. Daniel returned to his apartment, each step echoing off empty walls. The apartment now, a gallery of his suspicion. Receipts were pinned in order on the wall, dates and times forming a sinister map of her deception. The room felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were closing in to judge him. Shadows moved, with the flicker of passing clouds outside his rain-streaked window. He sank into a chair, running hands through his damp hair, trying to map her motives, trying to decipher why someone he loved so fiercely could fracture their shared reality. And deep inside, a question lingered. Could love survive when the architecture of trust was demolished piece by piece? Maya's phone buzzed, a single message lighting her screen. "We need to talk." Her chest tightened. She knew the conversation would be merciless, each word dissecting trust and deceit. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering as the morning chill crept into the cafe. Outside, traffic blurred through rain-slick streets, a mirror of her inner confusion. She weighed every possible response, each a forked path leading to more pain or fragile hope. Could she face the consequences of her actions, or would silence become her only refuge? Every heartbeat seemed amplified, a drumbeat counting down to confrontation. The evening arrived, carrying shadows longer than the day. Daniel and Mia met at the edge of a bridge, rain clouds heavy, streetlights casting halos around puddles. Words hovered between them, unsaid and dangerous. Daniel's jaw was rigid, fists clenched. Mia's shoulders trembled, eyes pleading for understanding. The water below reflected fractured neon light, mimicking their fractured hearts. Time seemed to pause, holding the two of them suspended in a moment where every decision could lead to reconciliation or irrevocable collapse. Could forgiveness exist after repeated betrayal, or was the night destined to end with a silence as deep as the river beneath? Night descended over the city, draping streets in shadows and wet asphalt reflections. Daniel walked with deliberate steps, the weight of betrayal pressing on his shoulders like iron. Each puddle mirrored fragments of Maya's face, twisting and distorting, forcing him to confront what he could no longer ignore. Memories collided with evidence. Every smile, every whispered promise, every lie etched in dates on the calendar. His heart throbbed like a drum in a tomb, relentless and unforgiving. Could he trust what he saw, or was he a prisoner of imagination? The wind carried her scent faintly, teasing him with warmth and sorrow, and Daniel clenched his jaw, asking himself, would confronting her shatter him completely, or uncover a truth he might never forgive? Mia paced her apartment, curly hair damp from the evening rain, fingers wringing a crumpled scarf. Her mind replayed Daniel's glare, the way betrayal had carved lines into his face she had once found comforting. She wondered if she could explain, if honesty could bridge the distance she had created. Each tick of the clock was a verdict on her fear, each shadow a judgment on her hesitation. Her chest felt heavy with guilt, yet she was trapped by uncertainty. Could she risk his wrath, or would silence be the only protection? Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware of the storm brewing in a small apartment where love and deception collided. Daniel stood on the rooftop, wind tearing at his soaked trench coat. Below, cars blurred through puddles, lights reflecting chaos back at him. The calendar of betrayals was alive in his mind, each date a ghost that wouldn't let him forget. He wanted to scream, to cast every lie into the void, but his throat constricted with rage and sorrow. The city breathed around him, indifferent, while he wrestled with a question. Could love endure when the foundation was built on repeated deceit? He felt the pulse of the storm above matching the rhythm in his chest. Every drop of rain a reminder of the trust he had lost. Every gust a whisper of the confrontation he could no longer avoid. Mia arrived at the bridge where they had first argued, rain still clinging to her hair and red sweater. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of wet asphalt and neon light mixing with her fear. She watched Daniel, pacing in silence, his coat soaked, posture rigid. Words failed her, but every heartbeat screamed apology. Could she speak the truth without destroying the fragile remnants of their bond? As the night deepened and mist curled around their feet, she realized that silence could no longer protect them, and the only path forward was confrontation. A conversation that would either redeem or utterly sever them. The first words they exchanged were sharp as lightning, slicing through the night. Daniel's voice trembled with anger and hurt. Maya's quivered with guilt and desperation. Every accusation, every defense, collided like storm waves against jagged rocks. He demanded the truth, and she hesitated, then spoke in a trembling whisper, laying bare every secret she had hidden. Silence followed, thick and suffocating, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Could love survive this revelation, or had it already been buried beneath the weight of repeated lies? Both stared at the wet pavement, reflections merging into one distorted mirror, asking themselves the same question. Was there a path back from betrayal, or had it become the end? The morning after the confrontation, Daniel moved through the apartment like a ghost, the air heavy with silence and unsaid words. Every object seemed to accuse him, the remnants of shared memories, now tainted by mistrust. The calendar of dates loomed over him, each mark a scar on the fragile trust he had once carried effortlessly. Mia had retreated to the bedroom, the door barely ajar. Her presence felt rather than seen. He ran a hand over his face, trying to piece together fragments of love and betrayal, wondering if anyone could survive repeated deception. The city outside hummed on, oblivious, and he realized that the storm wasn't over. It was only beginning, and neither of them could escape the reckoning that waited in the silence. Mia packed a small bag, her movements mechanical, each item a memory she didn't want to leave behind. Daniel watched from the doorway, jaw tight, heart thudding in his chest. Every action of hers was a reminder of trust fractured beyond repair. He wanted to speak, to stop her, yet the words refused to come. The apartment felt smaller than ever, shadows stretching longer, echoing their conflict. Outside, the drizzle had turned to a steady rain, the cityscape blurred and distant. Would leaving help mend the fractures, or would it only confirm that betrayal had drawn an unbreachable line between them? The tension hung thick, almost tangible, pressing down with every tick of the clock. Daniel left the apartment, the door clicking shut behind him like the end of a sentence. The city swallowed him in gray drizzle and blurred lights, each step a struggle against heartbreak and disbelief. His mind replayed Mia's apologies, her whispered confessions, and the dates that betrayed them both. He wanted clarity, but the truth was a jagged mirror, reflecting only fragments of what had been. Somewhere beneath the ache of betrayal, a small ember of hope still glimmered, fragile and flickering. Could trust be rebuilt, or had the repeated fractures made it impossible? Each breath he drew was heavy with uncertainty, the weight of their story pressing relentlessly on his chest. Mia paused under a flickering street lamp, duffel bag at her side, rain streaking her damp hair and red sweater. She glanced back at the apartment, shadows stretching across the building's facade like fingers trying to hold her back. Her heart ached, torn between the instinct to flee and the desire to fix what was broken. Every step she had taken had led to this confrontation, yet she knew the bridge between them had been scorched by lies. Could she rebuild it, or was the distance now permanent? The city breathed around her, indifferent to her turmoil, leaving only the question hovering. Could love survive after betrayal this deep? They met again at the city park, Daniel and Mia, the rain still falling lightly, the night air thick with unspoken words. Benches glistened with moisture, trees bowed under droplets, and the path shimmered with reflections of distant neon. Their eyes met, a storm of guilt, love, and sorrow, swirling silently between them. He stepped closer, and she didn't flinch, though her body trembled. Would they speak, or would silence decide their fate? Every heartbeat seemed magnified, a drumbeat echoing the consequences of repeated betrayal. And in that shared glance, they realized that the only way forward, whether redemption or finality, would demand brutal honesty, courage, and the willingness to confront every painful truth. The rain had stopped, leaving the city streets slick and shimmering with residual light. Daniel moved slowly through the damp alleys, trench coat clinging to his frame, mind replaying every betrayal. Mia's words echoed in his ears, a mix of confession and apology, yet the dates on the calendar still burned in his memory. He reached the old fountain in the square, water still trickling, reflections broken and distorted like the fragments of their trust. Could love survive when it had been fractured repeatedly, or had the weight of repeated deceit finally shattered them beyond repair? Each breath felt heavier than the last, carrying the sting of heartbreak and the fragile hope that truth might yet offer a path forward. Mia waited at the fountain, dark curls damp and sticking to her forehead, red sweater clinging from the residual drizzle. Her hands gripped the edge of her duffel bag, knuckles white, every muscle tight with anticipation. She watched Daniel approach, each step measured and heavy, the distance between them shrinking, yet charged with unspoken fear and sorrow. The fountain's water reflected their fractured emotions, rippling with the faintest movement. Could they find reconciliation in a world scarred by repeated betrayals? Or was tonight their final reckoning? Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the silence, counting down to the moment they would confront the truth fully. They stood face to face, rain-slicked pavement beneath them, mist curling softly around their feet. Daniel's hands hung at his sides, trembling slightly with the mixture of anger and yearning, while Maya's shoulders shook subtly, her breath uneven. Words were unnecessary. The weight of repeated lies pressed on both of them like a tangible force. Every glance revealed the ache of broken trust. Every small movement, a question of whether forgiveness could ever exist. And in the silence that stretched between them, a haunting thought lingered. Could love survive betrayal this deep, or would the night seal their fate irrevocably? Mia's voice trembled as she spoke, revealing hidden truths, timelines of deception and moments she could no longer hide. Daniel listened, heart hammering, chest tightening, each revelation carving a new fissure in his soul. The night air carried the sound of distant traffic and a faint echo of dripping water, amplifying the weight of their exchange. Could honesty, finally spoken, be enough to heal the fractures? Or had the accumulation of lies already poisoned any chance of reconciliation? Every word hung between them, heavy, electric, and unavoidable, demanding a response that would define the rest of their lives. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the storm inside him collide with the fragments of love he still carried. Mia's words had laid bare every deception, yet also the vulnerability he had longed to see. Their eyes met, searching for a path forward amid the ruins of trust. Could they navigate this together, or was the betrayal too vast to bridge? The fountain's rippling water mirrored the uncertainty in their hearts, reflecting not just neon lights, but the fragile possibility of redemption. In that suspended moment, both realized that the choice was theirs: to fracture completely, or to risk the fragile path back toward love. The early morning fog wrapped the city in a soft gray blanket, muffling sounds and blurring outlines of familiar streets. Daniel walked along the riverbank, hands in pockets, trenchcoat damp from the lingering mist. Each step felt heavier than the last, burdened with the memory of their confrontation and the truths laid bare the night before. He replayed Maya's voice in his mind. The trembling confessions. The vulnerability he had rarely seen. Could love survive repeated betrayal? Or was this the edge of the line they could never cross? The fog seemed to mirror the confusion in his chest, and for the first time in days, he wondered if forgiveness was even possible. Or if the only way forward was to let go entirely. Mia wandered through the quiet streets, red sweater damp, hair still clinging to her face from overnight rain. She clutched her duffel bag, unsure whether to return or stay away. Every step echoed the weight of her choices. Every shadow seemed to judge her hesitation. She thought of Daniel, his expressions carved into her memory, the pain she had caused. Could she face him again and rebuild what had been broken? Or was their love irreparably damaged? The city around her moved obliviously, indifferent to the inner turmoil that gripped them both, leaving only the fog, the wet pavement, and the haunting question of whether trust could be restored. They met at the abandoned pier, the wooden planks slick with dew, fog curling along the water's edge. Daniel stood stiffly, trench coat damp, fists loosely clenched. Mia, 29, approached cautiously, red sweater damp, duffel bag at her side. Words hung unspoken between them, the tension thick as the fog. Could they speak and truly repair the fractures of repeated betrayal, or would any attempt collapse under the weight of their past lies? Every wave that lapped against the pier seemed to echo the turmoil in their hearts, every ripple reflecting doubt, regret, and the fragile possibility of reconciliation. Mia's voice broke the silence, trembling yet determined as she admitted the full extent of her deception. Daniel listened, jaw tight, chest heaving, the raw truth cutting through the remnants of his anger and sorrow. The fog seemed to hold its breath, giving space to the collision of honesty and emotion. Could forgiveness exist now that every lie had been revealed? Or was the chasm too wide to bridge? Every second stretched endlessly, amplifying the weight of their shared history, each heartbeat marking the fragile edge between reconciliation and permanent fracture. Daniel reached out a hand, hesitant, feeling the tremor of his own vulnerability. Mia met it halfway, fingers brushing lightly, a fragile connection forming amid the ruins of betrayal. The pier beneath them creaked with every step, echoing the fragility of their trust. Could this small act of courage ignite the possibility of rebuilding? Or would one misstep undo everything? The fog lifted slightly, revealing hints of sunlight reflecting on the river, as if the world itself dared to hope alongside them. In that moment, the choice was theirs: to retreat into bitterness or embrace the perilous path of forgiveness. The sun broke through lingering fog, scattering golden light across the river and slick streets. Daniel and Mia stood on the pier, fingers still tentatively touching, breaths mingling in the crisp morning air. The weight of betrayal still pressed on them, but in the quiet, a fragile understanding formed. Every look, every slight gesture was laden with unspoken promises to rebuild trust, even if cautiously. Could love survive after repeated deception? The question hovered, unanswered, but for the first time the possibility of redemption glimmered. In the distance, water rippled gently, as if nature itself approved the tentative reconciliation forming between them. They walked together along the pier, cautious steps matching each other's pace. Daniel occasionally glanced at Mia, searching her eyes for sincerity, while she met each look with quiet determination. Every step was a negotiation of trust, every breath a fragile reminder of what they had survived. The river shimmered under the rising sun, reflecting fragments of their journey. Pain, betrayal, and tentative hope. Could they navigate forward without fear? Or would the shadow of past deception always trail them? The morning air felt charged with possibility, and for the first time the idea of forgiveness felt like something tangible, yet delicate. They paused at the pier's end, looking out over the river, silence heavy yet comforting. Daniel exhaled slowly, releasing tension he hadn't realized he carried. Mia let her hand linger in his, neither withdrawing, both acknowledging the unspoken weight of the past. Every lie, every date, every shadow of betrayal had been confronted. Yet, the path forward remained uncertain. Could love truly endure after such fractures? Or was this fragile reconciliation doomed? The gentle ripple of the river seemed to answer in its own way. Life continued, and perhaps so could they, if they chose to step forward together. Daniel finally spoke, voice low but steady, acknowledging the depth of betrayal and the difficulty of forgiveness. Maya nodded, tears glinting in her damp hair, red sweater soaked but vibrant in morning light. Each word they exchanged was deliberate, careful, and imbued with the shared understanding that rebuilding trust would be slow and fragile. Could they truly start again, piece by piece? Or would doubt always linger at the edges of every moment? The river whispered softly. The city woke around them, and for the first time both felt a cautious sense of possibility, stirring amidst the ruins of the past. As the sun climbed higher, Daniel and Mia stood once more, eyes meeting with a blend of caution and tentative hope. The pier glistened under the rising light, every droplet reflecting the story of their journey. Love, betrayal, regret, and now the fragile spark of forgiveness. They took a step together, forward into the unknown, knowing the past would never fully vanish, but that choice and courage might allow them to endure. Could love survive the shadows of repeated lies? They didn't have an answer yet, but in this morning, in this quiet moment, they chose to try. And for the first time, the question seemed less terrifying than the possibility of giving up.